Sorry about that, guys. Hey everybody, look who's here with us. Woohoo! I've got me a guest. Thank you so much. Julie's Orchids, officially known as Julie's son to the channel. She is here with me, keeping me company all the way from good old Australia, to be exact, Western Australia. Say hi, Julie. It's you. You're the guest star tonight. Take it away.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning from Australia. That's awesome. What time have you got right now, Julie?
It's right at 7:30 in the morning.
Oh my word. You see what she's doing for us on her rest and relax day. Hi, Robert. It's good to have you. Thank you so much for being here. On her rest and relax day, she gets all dolled up for us. I cannot believe it. I would probably say, yeah, not happening, Nina. Thank you very much, but that's awesome. So, tell me, Julie, how have you been? How are your orchids doing? How is everything going? Your summer, can you send us some heat over to Spain?
I would love to do that, but summer seems to be shy this year, and our spring and winter seems to be just kind of trying to drag along. Normally by this time of year, we're hitting into 35s and 40 degrees Celsius. We've had one 37-degree Celsius day last week. And other than that, we've been running in the mid 25, 26 areas. And it's still raining here, which is quite interesting because in Western Australia, we normally have a good 6 months of no rain and 6 months where we get a little bit of rain, and then 4 months where we get, of that 6 months, 4 months where it rains almost every day. We had rain 2 days ago, which is unusual. So
that sounds like the spring I had, except your temperatures are much higher by nature than mine would be in spring. But that it seems like you're dragging. You're not getting that heat.
Yeah, and it's got a few of the plants a little bit confused. I'm finding that some of them are waking up from their winter dormancy, or if you will, just not growing quite so fast. They're normally, popping away for spring a bit sooner, but things are starting to come along. We've got lots of new growths starting to pop out. A few new flower spikes are coming here or there, but it's just slow.
I had the same thing. It was agonizing because my window of opportunity is also closed because, of course, mine are outside and I'm always hoping for the temperatures to warm up, etc. But yeah, I had the same thing. How bizarre. Because
yeah, they're telling us here that we're in WA or Australia in general is experiencing a double La Nina event.
Hello, that's my name.
So You know, I don't know. I've been living in WA now for nearly 10 years, and I have been noticing myself a bit of a change in the way things run, weather-wise. Now, when I first moved here back in 2013, I was explained that we have 4 months of ridiculous heat, 2 months of hot going into cool and rain, 4 months of rain, and then 4 months of cool and rain going into hot. That's not been this year.
Right.
Yeah. But I'm kind of okay with that because don't have to run the aircon as much.
That's true. That is
Yeah.
true. Yes, I can imagine. Have you got any of your orchids outside at the moment at all? Do you even do that? Dare do that? Because you are the seedling guru, as far as I know, when it comes to people that follow my channel.
I don't take any of my plants outside really ever. We're working on trying to transition some out there, but we've got a lot of home improvement projects in the back garden, if you will, to finish up. I built a house a few years ago, and I didn't pay to have any of the landscaping done. I thought I would do it myself. And that was a stupid American living in Australia mistake, because gardening here is markedly different than gardening in East Central Illinois, where I'm originally from. So the back garden is really only suited right now to hang laundry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Plus,
So what are the differences? Just out of curiosity, if you don't mind, if it's too personal, please don't feel obliged to answer.
Okay, so for me, the differences here are two huge things. In spring and fall, when we start getting the coolness come down, that's when the pests come. And even though back home in the States, I lived adjacent to cornfields and soybean fields, and we had a fair few amount of pests. Here, when the pests come, they descend on you like a biblical plague from Exodus. The
Yes,
sheer
I know
numbers, the
Yes.
sheer numbers of them are ghastly. Earlier in the spring, when I have one rose bush outside that was just decimated by whitefly and aphids, and it seems like I would go out there every day, a couple times a day, to try to deal with them. And every time I'd go out there, they would just be so covered you could not hardly see the green of the plant.
Wow.
I had an elephant ear that I had planted out back, and it was completely eaten almost away one summer by caterpillars.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And then to compound things, when the hot comes, then you have the pests that come, they look for water.
Yeah.
So for me, I find it easier to keep everything inside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. So your front garden that you showed in a video,
Yeah.
how is that doing with the natives? Do native plants do better and cope better then, or is there a difference?
The native plants, it's taken 2 years to really get them situated and settling. We've planted a few this year that have already died.
Wow.
It's getting them established. Once you get them established, it's good. But the problem here is that you only have certain days you're allowed to water, and you're only allowed to water for such a certain amount of time. And that's just not enough to root them in.
My goodness.
So the front garden is looking good. But now, again, when we're dealing with our Western native plants, they tend to have their glory in springtime, and we're actually falling out of spring right now and heading into summer. So they're doing their natural dying back. So there's a very limited amount of time in Western Australia where your garden looks beautiful.
Yeah.
And we're past that.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, well, I have to say that I find that very fascinating because I have stopped gardening, well, probably for the last 20 years. I've been living in rental properties, but I
Yeah.
used to have a massive lush garden in Germany that I landscaped myself and, apart from lifting and moving boulders, but, dug out my own pond and all that business.
Mhm.
And when I came to Spain, I didn't, and here's the thing, what you mentioned, the watering. I didn't have a problem with the watering here in Spain at the time because back then water was cheaper than electricity, bizarrely, because by 96 everything was in a drought. It didn't rain for 5 years.
Oh, I didn't know
So yeah, it was really bad. And the first time it rained, everybody was outside celebrating, and then it rained for 3 months and people were sick of it, but we needed it. But yeah, it's so interesting because when I think of Australia, and this is again my ignorance talking, because I think heat, nice, awesome, put up 2 shade cloths, 70% orchids outside, and moving on, let's grow.
I think, yeah, I can understand that because that was the misconception that I had before moving here as well. And I think maybe that's because we get the Sydney Harbor and the east side and the tourists that's exposed Australia get you over here from all over the world. Whereas living here is quite different. So most of the time they're just showing the summer and the fun from over east. I really have never seen an international ad showing anything Western Australian wise. Um, Western Australia, and I can't speak for over east, maybe Sharon can add in onto this one, but my area of Western Australia is extreme in its weather. The heat, the sun here is so much more intense and hot and will burn your skin so much quicker than back home in Europe, because I've been in Germany and different places at summer times. And if you're in the heart of summer here in Western Australia versus the heart of summer in, say, Germany or Illinois, you're going to get a bad burn here in 5 to 10 minutes. Whereas back home, you might not have that problem. I was told that there's a hole in the ozone layer over Western Australia, and that's the cause of it.
Uh-huh.
But I don't know because I've not really done the look to check the science on that.
Right.
I just know what I can feel. And yeah, things in your car. I had a, we're going to go back when I first moved here. I had a cassette tape that I was, the old cassette tapes with the plastic
Yes.
covers,
Yes.
and it melted.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
My cassette tapes would melt in Kenya as well. They never shut properly afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah.
And leaving a lighter out, just out like on the dashboard or in the glove compartment was a big no-no because that would make it explode. The gas.
Yeah, and we've got days, a lot of days here where we're not allowed to burn anything. So like even running a charcoal grill for your barbecue is not allowed. It's all gas.
Right. Okay. Hold on a second, please. Keep talking. If you want to show your orchid, go ahead, please, Julie, because I have something to do in the back. I didn't put a setting into place, and I'm not going to put up with any dirty messages. So if you want to get your orchid and start talking about that while I do this, if you don't mind, I'm not trying to force you or anything, but I want to get this out of the way. I don't like bots coming into chat, and that was my bad. I didn't put in a setting, which will happen in about 5 minutes.
Okay, so for my birthday, we won't go on to what number birthday. My husband very kindly purchased me a native Western Australian terrestrial orchid from the local Kings Park nursery. Now, here in Perth, Kings Park is the big botanic garden and park, and they do sometimes sell native plants. Now, they've recently been doing work on getting some of our native terrestrial orchids out and available for purchase to the public, but they've been doing some hybridizing. So he got me a primary hybrid that does not occur naturally in nature, of a Caladinia laudigiana by Infundibularis. It's a hybrid. Now, the important thing to remember about Western Australian orchids is you have a finite window that they're available to see,
Mm-hmm.
go dormant. And they go dormant during summer. So the only time you get to see them is sort of in springtime.
Mm-hmm.
So this one, as you can see, that's what's left of it. It's now gone dormant. When he bought it for me in November, it was going into the end of its normal growing period. The leaf was still green.
Yeah, you showed that in a video, right?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
And it has since dried up and gone completely dormant. And now my job is to not water it at all until the normal rains start again in the fall. So I have a dead thing sitting on my shelves, and we're going to hope and pray and pray and hope that it comes back, because this is the second Western Australian native orchid that I have been gifted. The first one I was gifted was given to me by one of our local Western Australian Species Club presidents, and it was taken from an area, its natural habitat, that was being destroyed for infrastructure. And he gave that to me last birthday,
Uh-huh.
and it never, ever came out of dormancy. And I wasn't too shocked about that, because there a lot of reasons why people don't cultivate Western Australian terrestrial orchids in their homes is the beneficial bacteria and fungi that are found in the bush soils where they grow. You can't maintain in your home climates, but Kings Park seems to be pretty sure that they're going to be able to get these done and are selling them. But they have them planted very specifically, and it says on the little card that there's a section in the pot that it says "do not remove." And if you look way down here at the bottom,
let me get you up on screen so that people can see you better.
So if you can see this right here at the bottom, this is what they're referencing as a Chuck's cloth.
Uh-huh.
And they said not to remove this Chuck's cloth, but they didn't specify why. So what I'm assuming is that they've impregnated this Chuck's cloth with some of those beneficial bacteria that you can't grow indoors. Now, my plan is, if I can get this to grow again next year and we finish the back garden, is to put it back outside where it belongs, because this one was grown in Perth at Kings Park, about 15 minutes from me, in their soil. So it should be fine, one would think, in my yard.
Or you get a bucket of soil from them before you make its own little bed, like using that soil from them, no?
No, I'll run out to the bush and dig up some, because they'll charge me too much at Kings Park.
Oh, okay. Because so they have them potted in native soil in their nursery.
Yes, yeah.
That's
they've
interesting.
got them in the ground. Maybe one day I might be adventuresome and do a Julie's Orchids visits Kings Park and show you some of the grounds there.
Yeah, that would be awesome if you have time.
Yeah, but the terrestrial orchids here are so varied in their appearance. There's spider orchids. There's ones that really look nothing at all like you would expect an orchid, because all of their petals and sepals are fused and they look more like they're wearing a hood. A few of them look like ducks, basically, if you will, just as they're formed. And with all the different varied geographical locations that you can find in WA, from way north, say up Kalgoorlie, or all the way down south through Albany, because there is, yeah, there's the duck orchid. There
Just
is
for you, just for you.
because there is such a varied amount of climates that you experience in Western Australia, from north to south or west to east. You get so many different kinds of terrestrial orchids. It's just fascinating.
Oh, that book you sent me. It's like
Yeah.
I have to stop after a certain time, Julie, because it's like when you smell a perfume, it's overload. You've got to stop, you know, because otherwise you can't take any more in. It's fascinating.
Okay. Yeah. Australia. Oh, there you go, Sharon. So it wasn't a lie from what they told me about the ozone layer. Thanks for that. Um, yeah, Sharon just posted that Australia's ozone layer was severely thinned as a consequence of heavy use of ozone depleting substances.
Yeah, but I thought I read recently that because of all those aerosol sprays, that the ozone layer has started to heal itself and has marginally improved. So I don't know. I think I read that maybe 4 weeks ago because I was trying to look for the long-term winter forecast for Europe. And I went down weather rabbit holes and stumbled across this article that said, based on the, how quickly the world came together, noticed the problem, and it was proof that the world can work towards a common benefit and cause instead of always fighting each other. The fact that they stopped all those aerosol things with ozone depleting ingredients and changed everything from those cans. I thought it had healed by now, but clearly there's not that big progress. Maybe it's on the European side based on my research, because I really was looking if what am I to expect in January, February, and March?
Yeah, and it might just also be that comparatively from Illinois to where I'm living at now, I'm much closer to the equator.
Mm-hmm.
So that might also be a difference in how the sun feels.
Yeah. Oh,
but I know
definitely.
that in spring and summertime, I have an east-facing bedroom window, and that sun comes up right through the bedroom window at 5 a.m.
Oh, wake up call, talk about.
Yeah. So it works for me. So being up at 7:30 is not too bad because the sun's already had me up for a while now.
Right.
Yeah.
So China is spewing a number of ozone depleting chemicals again. Oh gee.
Thanks, China. Yeah.
My goodness. So from that video though, the leaf of that orchid it's pretty amazing. It's a bit fuzzy, isn't it?
Yeah,
It has
this particular kind of native orchid only produces one leaf.
Oh, okay.
That's it. This is all that it will produce. It'll produce one leaf and then the flower spike. But the leaf towards the base of the plant is very, very fuzzy.
Uh-huh.
It almost looks like a pubescent boy's fuzziness of his chin whiskers. I don't know if you can see.
Yes,
The
okay.
fuzz. Yeah. And it's really quite a soft fuzz.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never really seen a strappy sort of leaf like that be that fuzzy. But they're quite interesting, all of the different varieties and shapes that the native orchids come in here.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I was trying to prepare myself because I don't have this book in digital format, unfortunately. That would be a dream. We'd be here, well, all day. But
This is my copy.
Yeah.
And it's got mud maps for me.
Mud maps.
Yes, so that if I wanted to go for a drive, I could find them.
Mud maps. As in where the orchids would grow in the mud.
Yeah.
Cool. That's awesome. So when I mentioned that orchid, the Queen of Sheba, you immediately, yep, no, I know that. And here we were like the tourists just gushing over this gorgeous orchid. found locally at a campsite for a very brief period of time.
Yes, the Queen of Sheba is the be all end all of orchids for our local orchid hunters. There are a lot of Western Australians that will go out spelunking through the bush to try to locate native orchids. And in my book, the Queen of Sheba is so rare that they don't even put its mud map because they're afraid people are going to try to pilfer it.
Okay. Okay. Hello. We have another host.
Happy?
Hey. Hello. So cute. Oh, baby. He's probably thinking, well, what are you doing? What are you doing? Did you say happy or appy?
Hapi, Happy.
Okay.
She's
I'm
named
sorry.
after the Egyptian goddess of the Nile inundation.
All right.
Because when
Okay.
we first got her, she left us a lot of little inundations throughout the house.
That makes sense. There's because Trisha's Orchid Life has a dog as well, and I keep confusing the two of you. I don't know if she has Aki or something along those lines. I'm not sure. Trish, if you do watch this on replay ever, forgive me for not remembering, but I get so, like dog names and trying to watch the video, etc. But how cute. That is a great name. That is an awesome name. Well, tell me.
I find that we've got some dog friends that walk their dogs and we talk with them, and I don't remember the names of their humans, but I do their dogs.
Okay, that tells you something right there. I'm not a very sociable person, so when I walk the dogs, I'm not, I just keep my head down, listen to a podcast. People will probably steer far away from me. Sharon, if you want to come up, you're welcome to come and join the conversation. You know that, okay? Because Sharon had a fantastic idea. I think I briefly mentioned it to you in a novel that I wrote you. Sorry, Julie Sun, but that every once in a while we bring the Aussies up and have them tell us how it is growing orchids in general in Australia and let the conversation roll. Because in Europe, I would consider us pretty lucky with, being able to get orchids at the ready, be they blooming size or whatever. And I think that we're pretty spoiled that way. And okay, Sharon, that's awesome. What we moan about is the shipping. That's all we moan about. And I think that you would be happy to moan about just the shipping, considering everything y'all have to go through.
Yeah, particularly here in WA. I just want to quickly say to Diana Tortelli, she's asking if I can tell her some about the Kinganium.
Take it away. Take it away.
Yes. Diana, I can't really tell you much about Dendrobium kinganium. I don't have one.
Kingianum doesn't need a dormancy period. It just goes a little bit drier when the cold comes, depending. But Kingianum can also get snow, a little bit of snow, so it needs some water. Usually it starts spiking during our winter season. It's because I've got a Dendrobium baryota, and it is a Kingianum hybrid, and mine is spiking right now and just got rained on. So there is really no dormancy per se. Now, there are other opinions in this chat, and if you have other experiences with the Kingianum as opposed to myself or Julie, please let Dania know, especially seeing as we are in different climates. But my baryota is spiking and the keikis are growing. It's non-stop. My little Kingianum is starting to mature some growths, the ones that I got from Fernanda. Andy Land, it's good to see you. Thank you so much for being here. That's awesome. So Sharon will be joining us, but here's the thing. I am not here to guide the conversation. We want to learn from you, know more about your circumstances and how you cope and deal with, especially seeing people like myself in Europe moaning about shipping, and then in the United States, which seems to be like a smorgasbord of orchid opportunities left, right, and center. That must hurt.
It does here. Okay, so in Western Australia, where I'm from, we really only have one orchid nursery, and that's called Easy Grow Orchids. It's about 25-minute drive from my house, where you can actually go into their nursery during regular business hours and buy orchids. There's another gentleman that runs a nursery out of his property about an hour and a half from here, in the cooler area of Western Australia, called Orchid Up. And he opens his property up on appointment basis only, to come in and look and maybe purchase some orchids from him. Other than that, the only time that we can get live plants to purchase is through our orchid clubs and meetings and whatever our other members are putting up for sale. Now, if I wanted to buy an orchid from Europe, that would not happen. Western Australia has very strict import laws, so strict that here I cannot even bring orchids in from Eastern Australian states without the exceedingly high prices of quarantine and treatments. And so I've only found 3 Eastern Australian nurseries that have the legal ability to ship plants, live plants, into Western Australia. And that's called ICA 129 clearance. So those growers actually take the plants, they have to remove all of the media, they have to treat them with pretty heavy chemicals. And then they have to hold on to them after the treatment of the chemicals for a minimum of 24 hours before they can ship them out to us. So that usually adds, depending on the nursery, between $25 and $50 per
Wow.
order. And that's not shipping. That's not even including shipping. That's just treatment. So it's very difficult to order plants in. Now, ordering flasks of plants in, or even say going to Indonesia and buying flasks from Indonesian nurseries. If I go international and I can buy a flask of tissue culture or, just seed plants, I'm allowed to carry in up to 6 flasks at a time, but they have to be very clearly labeled. The label on the bottle has to very clearly match the receipts. And then you have to hope that whoever your, what's the word when you come to the airport?
Customs?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
That your customs officer isn't having a bad day and isn't going to decide just to say, no, you can't bring it in because it's plant material, because that happens sometimes too. So that's why I have so many Deflasking seedlings, because the plants that I wanted, I could not find through my limited availability to get live plants. And I was only able to find them in flask. So as a fairly new grower, I probably wasn't to the point.
Hey!
I probably wasn't to the point of skill set to take on deflaskings when I did, but I had to if I wanted to get these plants into WA. Likewise, if I wanted to send something to Sharon over east, I couldn't do it. We're not allowed to take plants out of WA. And I just had a good friend of mine that moved from Perth here. Her husband took a job over in Armidale over east, and she had to get rid of all of her plants. So she gave me all of her orchids because she can't take them out.
So is that exclusively from Western Australia to where Sharon is at, or is it across Australia you cannot cross borders? Is that a general rule, a law?
Now, I'm unsure if, say, I was over east in New South Wales and going to Queensland, if I could just drive them through. That might be a question Sharon could answer.
A lot of people do that. A lot of people drive with things that they shouldn't in the boot of their car.
Okay,
yeah.
we're not mentioning names, no?
No.
Well, I mean, it's mainly fruit really that's banned. I mean, if I was to move states, I can legitimately drive over the border with my houseplants.
Whereas, from what I've been told, we can't even take houseplants out of WA.
That's correct. Tasmania and Western Australia, and they're the two really big ones, what we call the quarantine states, because, it's no go in, no go out. That said, I mean, I've never done it because I've never driven into Western Australia, or if I'm going to go to Western Australia, it's 4 hours flight. Why would I drive? It takes a week to get there. So I barely survive those sorts of drives, let alone my plants. So, but yes, so South Australia, again, I've never actually driven with that sort of material in the back of my car, but there's no border patrol. I know people do it. It happens all the time. So
what is the origin behind that? I'm sorry, that was, I just cut you off. What is the origin behind that, the strict regulations within your own country?
Exactly the same thing. So, Western Australia is on the western side of Australia, same as fun, but, and we're on the east, but it may as well be a separate country in so many respects. And I know Julie knows what I mean.
Okay.
It stops diseases, essentially. So there are things in Western Australia that have never made it here. There are things in Melbourne which have never made it to Western Australia, and authorities shall keep it that way. So, and again, it's a very big, vast land. For those who have been here will know exactly what I mean. On the East Coast, we're a little bit freer and easier. The drive seems fun, at least based on. Absolutely. It can be fun. It depends on who you're with. If you're on your own, trust me, it's a bit of a struggle. But yeah, depending on who you're with and what you've got in the car with you, make sure you take an EPIRB or a bunch of flares for any such emergencies, especially if you're heading into the desert, into the center of the country.
A year ago or so, my daughter moved from Perth to Mackay, and they drove. And she had a little tiny potted plant that she was going to take with her. And they had to drive through the Nullarbor, which if you go on the map down and then all the way over towards the bottom of the screen and then all the way up and around. So she drove through the Nullarbor, which Nullarbor means no trees. And they actually took her little plant at the border crossing. The Western Australian authorities took it.
There you go.
So they wouldn't let her take
a pot plant that she bought at Bunnings that you could probably get the exact same thing at Bunnings in Mackay.
No doubt.
So Bunnings is our Lowe's.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she was like, "Mom, they took my plant," and I'm like, "Well, I told you not to take it."
It's the risk. I mean, I took an apple onto a flight, and aside from being threatened under arrest, I got to the other end. They didn't notice. They got to the other end, and in Queensland, and they had 2 patrol officers waiting for me, and they directed me to a bin, which said, "Please dispose of your fruit in the bin." And I'm like, it's an apple, but okay. Please don't miss me. I'm on a work trip.
We had to dispose of our shoes the last time we came home from Bali because that's when the mad cow thing, the foot and mouth was coming on.
Foot and mouth.
Yeah, so we had to get rid of our shoes before they let us on the airplane to come back home.
So do you find that you...
I'm surprised they didn't put you through a squeak dip.
Yeah,
they did that the next
day. the disinfectant spraying pen or something. But do you find that these restrictions are actually benefiting? Oh, I'm sorry for the barking. Do you find that
At the end of the day, go ahead, Julie. Sorry.
I'm sorry. In my opinion, for Western Australia, the flora and the fauna here is markedly different than the flora and the fauna where Sharon is at. And it's very, you would think it's very hardy, and it's very hardy to its specific conditions and growing conditions. But anything else that comes into it, if you think about the native populations of the world where colonization happened and how it decimated native populations with things like smallpox that Europeans could handle with. That's what's going on here. We have a big problem in Western Australia with the Europeanized honeybees over-competing and killing in the native bees here in Western Australia. There's a huge issue with European boring beetles that have come in on old furniture from people that have brought it into Western Australia in the past, that are decimating the old growth forests and are killing things. So even when we were moving over here from the States, we were pretty well told that if it's a wooden piece of furniture, not to bring it. So we didn't bring any furniture at all. We just brought suitcases. And when you go to different areas or different wildlife parks around town or around the state, you do see signs that say whatever treatment for a European boring beetle is in process here. And
Yeah.
so it is.
We're trying to stop agriculture. Like, we're certainly trying to stop certain diseases that are flourishing in certain areas of the country, not affecting agriculture areas of another part of the country. Are we successful in it? Yes and no. We've still kept foot and mouth disease out of the country. It did almost get in, but it got stopped at border. As we know, as Julie said, people from Bali who were holidaying in Bali were all essentially had to walk through essentially disinfectants on the way in. They were all made to do that. Is it beneficial? Yeah, I think so, because we don't have the problems that happen and are prevalent. And, you know, I think some of the agriculture industries internationally would beg not to have some of these things going through their industry.
And another thing that's really nice for the animals is that in Australia, full stop, there's no rabies.
I was going to ask that next question. It's not plant related, but I was going to ask because that is clearly one of the things, especially like amongst wildlife and with pets, etc., that we had an issue with in Kenya back in the day. But I'm telling you, we didn't have any restrictions. We had to get rabies shots and that's it. There wasn't any of that going on, despite the things that could happen with the livestock, the plant world, the fauna, the safari parks. So what I'm trying to do is get a comparison going, whereas Kenya was just like, whatever, just get your shots, get your pets, and that's it. There was no protection of, and I'm going back into the late 60s, but still, I can imagine that Australia had all that implemented back then, and it isn't just a recent phenomenon that is happening. This is not just because it's recent. This is something that's been ongoing for decades, I would imagine. Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, Australia has got a 60,000-year history, but it was only in the last 200 years that, or 200 or so years since the white settlers came, that we've really brought a lot of problems with us, and we continue to bring problems with us because at the end of the day, things always get through customs. We still get, drugs and illegal drugs coming in from, all sorts of places. We still get stuff coming through everywhere. But we've been militant, but we've also been lucky.
Yeah. So Sharon, in your case on the East, hello, what you got? What have you got there?
Sorry to change the subject, but someone was asking about a king England.
Yes. Okay. Awesome. Let me stop screen sharing and get you up close, girl.
That's one of mine.
That's a nice looking one.
She's beautiful, isn't she? So one has got about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 new growths coming in at the moment. But yeah, this one's got cute little purple flowers. I mean, she's a hybrid, but very vigorous hybrid. And I've just seen this bloody spider that's sitting on top of a leaf.
Oh,
Ugh.
it was a little bit of camera time. If Danya is still here, can you tell us how you take care of her? Because Danya was asking about dormancy. Do you give it a dormancy rest?
It doesn't really need a dormancy rest. That way, look, there's a spider. Lovely. Just because we're in Australia, we always need spiders around.
Well, it's the
So
same take.
I don't find they need a dormancy rest. You know, of course, I mean, this one lives outside 24/7 in a north-facing location. Give them as much sun as you can. Now, the key to getting these guys looking good in the springtime is giving them winter sun, because the sun's a lot lower in the sky. And this would normally live in a place where there is deciduous forests. So in winter, the leaves drop and it will actually get a fair degree of sun.
Brighter sun.
Yeah. So it'll probably get more sun in the winter than it does in the summer. So
Can I just stop you there for a minute? I don't want to be presumptuous. I don't want to sound like, I'm not saying people don't know. I just want to make sure that we all understand north facing down under is our south facing. Okay?
Yeah.
Same as in Kenya. I have right now it's summer in my country, whereas, okay. So when Sharon says north, she means her north is our south, and that is the brightest light ever. Sorry to interrupt there. I don't know.
No, you're right.
Sorry
Absolutely
if I've offended anybody with what I just said. Everybody pretty much would think, yeah, okay, Nina, shut up. Okay, moving on.
No, it needs to be said. The amount of articles when I was getting into plants, or when I was getting into orchids, the amount of content I read on the internet was like, oh, we're just going to talk about what happens in May, and we're going to talk about your south-facing location.
Exactly.
But May here is different.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I find that the articles are so one-sided that it would be so easy just to say, use the season names, which is what I'm trying to implement in my videos when I talk about care and what I do, instead of saying fall, whatever. Instead of saying October, I'm really pushing, to talk about the different hemispheres as well. It's difficult because we are so ingrained with this one track mind type of thing. It's wrong on every level, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Just old habits die hard. Even I get caught out with it. But yes, so winter sun, reduce the watering down. I wouldn't say stop watering it. It needs its water, and I'm hesitant to use the time-based suggestions. And it really does depend on where you are. For me, in my conditions in Melbourne, once a month watering is fine. Or once a fortnight in a warmer winter, because our seasons are changing. And I would only really give it a little bit. I would not douse it and let it all run out like I normally would in the summer. Where you want to say water your orchids, water your orchids, make them swim. But in the winter, just a little bit around.
Yeah. Pretty much that's what I do with mine. If it would rain, let's say 2 or 3 days consecutively, I will put mine undercover, when I have keikis, so I have to be a little bit more mindful of the Kingianum keikis, but they are undercover. And of course, when it's a little bit dull and dreary as it is at the moment, my humidity is much higher, and the humidity takes care of the watering in its own right. But if you're growing indoors, you got the heater on, your humidity is a little bit lower. It would be ideal just to give it a little bit of a trickle every now and then. I always say, do not let the canes ever come to the point of shriveling. That signals it needs water. Why let it get to that point, Some people say, let them shrivel, and by that time, it needs water. We don't have to take it to that extreme, in my opinion. But, hey, Justin's Orchids and More, it's good to see you. Welcome. We are in Australia. I don't know how long you've been here, but we have Sharon Carpenter on the left with her gorgeous, gorgeous aerial hair. Ariel as in the Little Mermaid, and we've got Julie's orchids as well. So we have Western Australia represented and Eastern Australia, and these ladies are giving us some insights into their challenges when it comes to growing orchids with the restrictions that they are faced with. And then we just sit back and eat humble pie when we moan just about shipping. And that is Europe complaining about not being able to get as many orchids as we want to get our hands on compared to the United States. So in order of discrimination, Australia really has the short end of the stick. Okay, sorry, Justin. I didn't realize you had been in here for a while, but I just thought I'd do a little recap because, yeah, mad respect to the Australians over there.
I guess it's interesting. You know, I've lived in Australia most of my life. I spent 1 year in New York City. But other than that, I've lived here in Melbourne. Now, I've always lived with these sorts of restrictions. And, you know, aside from a short period of my earlier adult life, I've always had plants around me. So I've never really noticed the restrictions so much. Contrast that with someone like Julie who moved here from the United States.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things, you know, when you go to the States from Australia or you come to the States from here, there are a lot of culture shocks.
Yeah, it's a bit draconian.
Yeah, exactly. So, but, you know, I don't feel that draconianism, because it's been sort of drilled into us from a very young age about why it exists. You know, for a large point of my, you know, plant growing journey, I just get the plants that I can. And honestly, you know, I love Australian natives plants. I love my tropical house plants too. Believe you me, I love my tropical house plants. But, you know, the Australian native species, they're just so hardy and tough because they have to be because of our conditions. But they're also very beautiful. I mean, little kangaroo paws, if you don't have huts, you know, a bunch of them growing in your garden, you're silly. They grow like weeds, and they're gorgeous flowers.
My kangaroo paws have got flower spikes almost 1.5 meters tall.
There you go. And you barely have to do anything.
You showed them are they in your front garden, Julie?
Yeah, they're in the front garden, but at the time they were not in bloom. Yeah.
Okay.
And I guess that's the same with anybody. You draw on what you can get. You know, if you're in the US, you're going to go for US species as well. The thing I love about WA is they have this little tiny plant that is tiny plant. It actually is a tiny plant. Cephalotus, if anyone's heard of it.
The Albany pitcher plant.
Albany pitcher plants. This is a carnivorous plant, not related to Sarracenia, even though it looks like Sarracenia. And right now we're looking at the kangaroo paw plants, which are meant to look like little kangaroo. But the cephalotus is.
Well, there you go. Check that out. I've got some images of blooms, and we have the real deal, the viewfinder. That is awesome.
So this is just
Go ahead, Julie.
I don't know if you can see how tall that one is by comparison to me because I'm on my laptop.
Wow.
And how about this one here standing next to me?
So they grow different sizes depending on where they are even? That's awesome. Look at that. That's huge. You don't have to bend over to smell the flowers. Do they have a fragrance?
No.
Okay.
Not to my knowledge.
No. All right, I'm going to go back in.
They are very, very cute. Oh, thank you for doing that for us. That's appreciated. Thank you very much, Julie. That's awesome. So when it comes to all the native orchids and such, are there any, for example, that are like going extinct? Is there anything that one has to be careful of? What happened after the fires? Was there a lot of destruction? I don't know, anything that you can share with us in that area?
In
Oh,
Western Australia, the Queen of Sheba is the most endangered of them. All Western Australian native orchids are under threat due to expansion and loss of habitat, full stop.
Okay. Okay.
from the
That's
eastern side, to my knowledge, we are the same. There's been a lot of poaching that's going on. If it's not being poached, it's being rezoned for more residential and industrial areas as we expand our economy and continue to expand our population. At the moment, where the cities are bursting at the seams over here, and housing prices are just insane because there's not enough stock. So they're trying to release more land, and that impedes on where the orchids are, particularly around New South Wales, where you've got the beautiful Dendrobium speciosums and things like that. They're just, we are just destroying that habitat really, really, really quickly. It's frightening. And I think Michael might have pointed it out. Our koalas are also now officially endangered. Just due to the fires as well. So between the fires that we've had recently, the expansion of civilization and poaching, all of our native orchids are officially endangered and are in real trouble.
So is there any kind of a plan in place when they go and, let's say, clear an area for development? Do they go and find these orchids and try to dig them up to save them? Or because considering how strict certain things are with regards to don't move, don't go poaching orchids, when it comes to development, do they then go out with a group of horticultural experts that then dig up the orchids to make sure that they are cleared before development progresses?
I'll answer this one in WA. So locally here in WA, some of the councils that are doing the expansion work will actually work in conjunction with the local orchid. We have a Western Australian Species Orchid Society, and they actually have gone out and harvested some of these native orchids before the infrastructures come in. Now, I was talking to a friend of mine that lives smack dab in the middle of the city, and they did a little bit of rezoning and pulled up a parking lot by their house and turned that into parkland. And some of the pink enamel fairy orchids came back, that they had been there underneath this parking slab for years, I mean, decades, and they've come back in that little tiny area. So that was quite wonderful. And then also in Western Australia, as I mentioned earlier in the podcast, the Kings Park big nature reserve here in Perth is actually working on saving them, getting them to cultivators at homes like mine by making primary hybrid crosses and potting them up in ways that we can actually get them, like this one, back home and growing. So Kings Park and Kings Park, Friends of Kings Park Nurseries are trying to work on that to save some of our species.
Okay. How about it in your neck of the woods, Sharon?
Yeah, look, I honestly don't know, but what I haven't really been engaging to that level, I guess, with orchids, where orchids is concerned. What I do know is that over here, you have a bit of a push and pull politically. So you'll have the planning and you'll have the developers who want to develop into an area. And you'll have, it goes out for consultation process. Always goes out for consultation process. And a lot of people will say, well, hang on, we don't want you to go in here because, we've got Aboriginal sites, we've got native species, which are not doing so well. They'll raise up a whole bunch of issues as to why they shouldn't be allowed to go in there. What we've found is the issue is, particularly in Victoria, is the councils will say, okay, no, we're going to block that planning permit. they take it to what we have as it's a part of the court system, but it's not a court. It's actually VCAT, which is a tribunal, Victorian Civil and Administrative Tribunal. And they will frequently overrule the councils and allow the developers to do what they want. Sadly, we've lost a lot of our habitat to those processes. So what are we doing? There are areas that we try to keep as native forests, provided it's part of native forest. It's owned by the state of Victoria. You can't get into those areas to go build another car park or another things. But aside from that, unless it's not zoned, everything else is pretty much fair game.
Right. Well, same in Kenya, because in my live stream, what I didn't mention when I went to my high school in that live stream last week, I was so focused on going and zoning in on the school and blah, blah, blah. But the ridges where the upper road is bare because of fields and agriculture, people building their own little gardens for their corn and whatever it is they need for their families. That used to be all forest. It was only after, the next day when I went through the comments to see if I'd missed anybody, make sure that I acknowledged them correctly, etc., that I recognized how bare it is left and right. And that is all habitat. And, now we have the Aberdare Forest Mountain region that is protected. We have XYZ zones that are protected. But again, we have hardly no legislations for nature protection apart from the big safari parks. And it was just like, okay, no, we're going to use this part of, this is my shamba, which is Swahili for garden. We're going to chop down some trees. We'll use that for firewood, and then we'll plant our corn. And it looked, only afterwards I thought, oh my goodness, this is not, no, this was all forest, and there was a road cut through the forest, But it's a shame. But here we see something. I went to Kings Park on Google Earth, and this must look like home to you, Julie.
Yeah.
you're
like beautiful park.
Almost.
It really is a beautiful, beautiful.
And
park.
It's bang smack in the middle of what I would consider residential, urban, schools, etc. And
it's right out.
Oh no, it's actually in the middle of the city.
Yeah, it's right in the middle of the CBD. And it's
how,
built.
How big is it?
Downtown, for those that are in America, that would be downtown. So you see the blue buildings there, that's all the high rises.
Right. Yeah. There we go. Okay.
And it's up sort of on a hill. So when you're in Kings Park, you also can look out over the Swan River. That should be the Swan River right there.
Uh-huh.
So it's got beautiful views.
Look at it.
There you go. Yeah. Nice walkable parklands, and there are nice planting areas, and it's a beautiful park.
So how big is it, do you reckon? Acres, hectares?
I'm an acres gal, so I'm gonna say, Sharon, would you agree maybe 5 acres?
Oh, I would have thought more than that, but you might be right.
Yeah. It's really hard to
tell. Between 5, somewhere between 5 and 10. But it's been a few years since I've been there. But
yeah.
So would this be like Central Park in New York, but for Perth?
Yeah.
Could we make that comparison?
Yeah.
Look at this tree fern. Look at this tree fern right here. How cool is that? I think it's a tree fern.
Melbourne has one like that. It's the Melbourne Botanical Gardens, and again, it's right smack bang next to the city. The Botanical Gardens, there's actually a running track around it. We call it the Tan. So if you go running around the Tan at 6 o'clock in the morning, you'd see hundreds of people going on that run. But yeah, it's right next to the main CBD, Central Business District, or downtown, as you guys.
All right. And how? Oh my word! What a view! What kind of structures? I mean, this is amazing. So in here, in this park, do they feature any native orchids per se? Would the beds have them tucked away? Is that something that these botanical gardens do, or do they have a designated area?
Okay, I've not, in my limited time that I've gone there, seen any terrestrial Western Australian orchids, but what I have noticed is that they will have pockets of areas representing the different flora and fauna that you can find Australia-wide.
Okay.
So you can sort of have a little walk through the more tropically side of, say, Queensland, with those nice ferns and things, and there's even a very nice established baobab tree that's quite a
Yes.
beauty.
Oh, I love baobab trees.
A lot of grassy parklands where you can sit and picnic and things of that nature as well.
Okay.
And it's
and it's quite hilly. There's quite some. It's not a flat area at all.
no. And I don't know if that's natural hill or if they built that hill up from construction, because I know there's very close to that area, there's part of the freeway system, and they've dug a tunnel, what's called the North Bridge Tunnel, to extend the freeway here or there. And I was told that they dug that out and that there was a lot of controversy because it was going through native Aboriginal sites that were destroyed.
Oh, we're good at it. We're really, really, really good at destroying 60,000-year-old caves.
Year-old history. And thanks to Rio Tinto with the cave arts up north. Yeah. And I think they've just,
Gorge.
Yeah, I think they've just been given the go-ahead to do more oil expansions and stuff up there by those rock arts, and there more of them are under threat.
Well, the thing is that, go ahead.
If you'd like the backstory, so just to give those of you who are not familiar with the the news cycle, and why would you be? The Yuccan Gorge is a bunch of rock formations that have artwork in there from our First Nations people that have been there for at least, I don't know exactly when they were dated, but they're thousands and thousands of years old.
Like 20 plus thousands of years old. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's got storytelling and dream time on the inside there. Oh, look, that's where I live.
There you go.
And the Rio Tinto, in their infinite wisdom, decided that even though that they knew what was there, they blew it up anyway. Suffice to say, there was this is only a couple of years ago, there was a massive uproar across the country. They lost a lot of social capital and license on that one. And they got taken to court, and, we wagged the finger at them and said, there. Technically, they had the law on their side. So there is a number of legislation that is now going through Parliament to give further protections to those areas. But yes, we've just discovered that, as Julie said, they've been given further exploration rights to go up and blow more stuff up there. That's just great. However, they wouldn't want to be doing that one again. I mean, it really did cause a massive, massive fuss around the country.
Yeah, there's a big hullabaloo over that. Yeah. And rightfully so. That's not just Aboriginal history. That's human history that they're destroying.
Right.
We're all
civilization on the planet.
Go ahead. We're in your neck of the woods.
These botanical gardens, they've got a lot of Australian species in it, including orchids. You will find the orchids dotted all around the place. We've got a lot of speciosum in here, different variants of speciosum.
Oh, where can I go to see those? Would that be possible, do you think? Or is that a seasonal thing? It would all depend.
They really are dotted around the place. If you want, I can go get mine and show it on camera.
Bring it.
Mine's not in bloom.
I am,
right.
I have this thing about speciosum.
I'll go get it.
Okay, if you don't mind. Wow, thanks.
My speciosum isn't in bloom. I'm wondering if hers is.
Have you got a mature one, Julie?
Yeah, but it's not in bloom. Hang on, I'll grab it.
Wow. Here's me with Speciosum envy. Incredible. Check this out. A little walk in the park. Who'd have thought, hey? On a Saturday night, Sunday morning. I'm trying to get to the other side of the lake, as you can tell. Trying to get another viewpoint. Oh gosh, I love the giant bamboo, if that is giant bamboo. Oh, let's head for the bridge. This is very Central Park. Very Central Park. Oh, hello. Except that for the railing looks a little bit different. Can we get to the bridge? And then we can have a little bit of a look-see, a look around. Oh my word. Hello. Look at that. So let me just check
I
the
put mine
chat.
on a chair because, you know, she's a big girl.
The
Oh, wow.
wildest,
It's not
the
that
wildest
big.
animal in Italy is a rabbit. Good grief. And California has dropped the ball on protecting many species. That surprises me, Robert. That really does surprise me. Wow. Michael mentioned something to you, Sharon. The county will block development. Did you mention?
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. Look at
Yep.
this. I've been looking. Okay. What do we have here? Excuse me while I jump out of screen sharing because we need to see these. Oh, look at the two of you. Oh my goodness. Grabbing by both hands. You need some serious biceps. You got yourself a set of guns there.
I do. She's massive.
Look at
One is
that.
huge. It had 13 spikes on it last. It's actually, I've only cut the spikes off in the last month or so. It's done.
And the fragrance
This
must
is one
be
of them. I have
insane.
another one.
That's one of, okay, show off. Now, come on. I'm sitting here. I've been gagging for Speciosum, well, since I started this collection, but I was reluctant to get them in seedling size. And I
Oh, don't be
regret that.
reluctant. They grow quick.
And I regret that now because here I am 5 years later and, you know, it would have been, you know, right, Andy Land? hold your beer.
Let's talk about a seedling Dendrobium speciosum.
Let's do that.
I have a seedling too.
I got this one right here on 4 of 21.
Okay.
And it came with 1, 2, 3, these 3 little ones back here.
Right.
The first year I had it, it grew this, and this.
Right.
Look at this one. This is this year.
Okay. Oh my goodness.
This one bloomed for me last year off of this one.
Oh, that annoys me to no end.
Yeah, get yourself one. Get a little
flower
cheeky seedling one.
Oh. Gosh, that annoys me to no end now. I could have had my lime rock and okay, continue.
So they do the double, when they get to this size, they'll do the double flower spike. So you actually have 2 flower spikes coming out, and then you have the huge spray of flowers that you get with a speciosum. Looks like a foxtail.
Sharon, you look so tiny. You look so tiny in comparison. I know.
We
I
actually
mean,
have.
have a look at where I'm putting my hands around. I mean, that's
know.
my hand. I'm putting it around that, and you know, I can lift it up, and that's how I have to carry her, because you know, all the good squat pots are worth their weight in gold.
Oh my! Are you prepared for all this, Julie?
Yeah. These ones will go outside when we get the back garden done.
Okay. Daniel's
Now, we
asking.
have a gentleman in our orchid society that brought his specimen, speciosum, to a show.
Mm-hmm.
Took a flatbed truck and what are those things? A fork truck to get it off the flatbed truck to put it in, and they had to open both double doors to the arena or the showing area to get it in. It was on a flatbed truck.
There's a
Oh
massive
my
one
goodness.
in Florida, a very famous one that's in Florida. The gentleman has been growing, I think, for about 20 years. So,
Oh my goodness. So how long have you
but
had yours,
these are
Sharon?
also under threat. These are also under threat. They grow on rocks and they grow on the edges of cliffs, and they grow in our woodland areas in New South Wales up to Queensland, which is on the east side of the country. And yeah, we apparently aren't very good at taking care of our native flora and fauna. Not as much as we should be.
But what is the fragrance like?
My fragrance, it was florally. I can't say rosy, but a little, for me, I tend to, a little hint of rose, but it's just got a real nice, fresh, for me, floral fragrance.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not strong. It's not in your face, that's for sure. It's
And
just
with
a
that
nice
mass of
subtle...
flowers, even with that mass of flowers, it doesn't get strong.
No, it's not.
No,
I would say something like a Sherry Baby would be a lot stronger.
Okay, interesting. I thought the more blooms, it would just be like, whoo, take over, you know? Not that I mind, but
At least
that wouldn't
this one.
Okay.
I mean, you don't have to like bury your nose in it to smell it. You can smell it if you're in its close proximity. I'd say within arm's length, you'll get the subtle smell.
Yeah.
But it's not going to drive you out of your house.
Okay. I have a Dendrobium speciosum, the Maitsuru, the little variegated kind from Japan. It's in a tiny little pot, and it's a miniature orchid, but that's my claim to fame. I want something of the caliber where you kind of think, I'm not ready for forklift status, but you know, along the lines of what Sharon's got, I would settle for what Julie has after. They always say you should. When's the best time to plant a tree? Do you know the answer to that? When is the best time to plant a tree? 5 years ago.
When you feel like digging a $500 hole?
Yeah, they say 5 years ago. 5 years ago, because by the time you're thinking of it, you've lost 5 years of growth.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel with the speciosum now. Boo,
I'm
Nina.
Say no, they grow like weeds. If you do them right, they grow like weeds.
Yeah, and they live outside. Well, yours is not at the moment outside, but yours is outside, Sharon. And it can go down very, very cold. Right. That might be something for the
So we don't get freezing here.
Right.
So we don't get to freezing. So we might have cold winters that get down to like 1 to 2 degrees at worst. But that's only for a couple of nights, really. We don't get snow. I don't do snow. Simple as that.
Yeah, I don't do snow either.
So I'm going to put this guy back.
I mean,
everything.
You know, don't you know, don't break your back. Come back safely. Don't fall.
We're gonna have to get Sharon a fork truck before much longer for her plant.
Wow. And then of course they're easy to divide once they get to a certain size, and you've got more, and then they get angry because they've been divided, and then they grow even more beastly. Lovely. I love the orchids like that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I got my first one as a gift, and it was a division from someone in one of the local orchid societies. And I did it wrong because I didn't give it its rest.
Mm-hmm.
And I watered it all year long and kept it too wet. And I lost the first set of roots, and it balked for a little bit, and I wasn't giving it quite enough light. So I increased the light, decreased the water, and bam, it went at it again, which then taught me how to take care of this one. Right. And just look at last year's growth.
Yeah.
This year's growth. Yeah. So it's.
And how much fertilizer do you give it? Do you give it any? Does it need much? Or, I mean.
This one, to be honest with you, this last year's growth, I plant was before I had the RO water system, and I was just feeding it my straight tap water, thinking it's from Australia. It's getting Australian water. It'd be fine. And this was one of the few plants that didn't mind the 485 parts per million that my water here in my area of Perth has.
Right.
Now that I'm using RO water, I've been fertilizing it at the same parts per million that I fertilize all of my regular orchids. And there's videos on my channel that explain that.
Yeah, I dropped your link in the chat.
Yeah, so every week out of a month, I fertilize 3 weeks a month, and then I rinse on the 4th. So the first week of the month, I do fertilizer and CalMag with a total like parts per million. I don't remember what it is, but lower parts per million. Then the second week, I do just fertilizer. Then the third week, I do fertilizer and CalMag, and that's when they're in active growth. And then the fourth week, I flush. I'm not seeing any signs yet, knock on wood, of any deficiencies. The fact that it shot out cane that's easily 3 times as big as the ones that it shot out when I was feeding it just tap water.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming it's happy.
Wow. And you, Sharon, what do you do? 1,000 parts per million? Or just let it do its thing? What? A shovel of fertilizer? Here. I know.
So I guess most of the orchid growers here will tell you that it's an Australian orchid, therefore you don't really need to fertilize it much. I do my own thing. I fully admit that, which may not be what everyone else does. I also will use I use Orchid Focus, which is from Growth Technology, a company called Growth Technology here. I use Growth Technology products for all my plants. They're wonderful. I douse on the week, and throughout the growing season. Whenever it is in growth, it doesn't matter what season it is, it's a dendrobium. If it's actively growing, fertilize.
Yeah.
So that's what I do every quarter. And Julie's going to hate me for saying this, but I have about 30 parts per million in my tap water. So I just get the hose and just get
the luxury. I'm reading comments. I know, the luxury. I read comments of the people in the United States with that kind of ppm in their tap water, and I remember when I was in Dallas, I've never had such soft baby skin and never needed so many products. I never needed to worry about my softener for my clothes. The water was so soft, it was gorgeous, delicious, and you just chuck the hose at it. Well, we
have fluoride, chlorine, chlorine, and a little bit of fish, the same stuff that you would use in your fish tanks to neutralize all of that, drops of prime or anything like that will remove all of that instantly. But I've never had to worry about parts per million. And so pretty much all of my plants, bar the Dracena and the prayer plants, everything else is on straight. Is on tap water. Those that aren't, I have buckets that I just about a day, and then I'll use those for those really, really, real plants that don't like chloramine or chloride.
Right. So may I ask a question? Being that it is a local, let's say local to Australia species, what would you, because you're preparing your business, Sharon, what would you charge for a division, let's say a 3-bulb division with a new growth of your, if you were to do that, what would you charge for the size of your orchid as a selling point? What would the value be?
She's sort of special, so look at the size of her.
Hypothetically,
do I really want to split it up? She's absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, hypothetically, pretend.
I would charge $100 to $150, somewhere in that range.
For 3 bulbs and a new growth, being it's a mature size. Wow.
And we still my beating heart. Understand how difficult that would be, but that's what I think someone might pay for the division. So a straight half division, let's just say. So I would say somewhere in the order of 150 to 100 150 Australian dollars. Half if you're in the UK, 2/3 if you're in the US. That would be what I would expect someone would pay for that.
Okay.
I don't think I'm going to get.
Okay.
But
does that resonate with you, Julie? Would
you ask the tough questions?
I'm sorry. It just we can pretend. I mean, there's some orchids I hate to have to divide, but I have to because of space, and it just breaks my heart. But yeah, no, I hear you. That's why that thing has to go on a rock, and woe betide if I have to ever move. Go ahead, Julie.
So I'd say when I bought my seedling one, I bought it from over east, and they were on clearance, and I paid $10 for it. But it was a seedling, little tiny thing.
Mm-hmm.
In Western Australia here, I've seen local growers advertising them for sale, 75 to 150, depending on how big.
Mm-hmm.
And when they had them for sale at Easy Grow Orchids, are the local nursery, they're running 90 to 120. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're the same. So if I go to my local news, which have probably about a quarter size of those, they're running at $90 at the moment. So, but I mean, I picked up one similar to that one, a little smaller, a hybrid, not a hybrid, which really she is, but a bit more complex hybrid, for around $90. 110, I think it was at the time. That was a couple of years ago. So,
right. So are they readily available?
It depends.
Yes,
they are
all over the place.
And yet they bring in that kind of value. That's very, very interesting. Because
as an example, I was at Bunnings last night, and they had a new shipment of no ID plain white phals. And they had this one huge, it was a huge flower spike with big, huge flowers, but it's a no ID phal, and they were wanting $90 for it.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Now,
that kind of resonates with what we were talking about.
Speaking of the time of year, this is one of my phalaenopsis. And this is a no ID. I got this around the time my father passed away in June. And have a look what I've got. I've got an out of season flower spike.
Yeah.
Don't ask me why that one's happening.
Have you got your AC on?
No.
Okay.
It's 26 degrees in here, and I'm happy.
Yeah, no, I don't use AC either. I'm the same. Like, no, why would I? Not even in my car. No way. When it's hot, it's hot. Wear black to increase the heat. So, well, there you go. No, seriously, I'm such anti-AC. I cannot tell you. When I was in Dubai, I used to hate it every single time you went somewhere. It was flipping cold. I couldn't imagine running around in Dubai, and I was always carrying a sweater because you go from one establishment to the other, and the AC would be cranked up. Horrible, absolutely horrible. I got goosebumps sitting here just thinking about it. And it's actually nice and toasty and warm. I wonder what's going on outside. But yeah, so any more questions? I know that Sandy had a question. Do any of you ladies grow a Dendrobium anosmum?
No.
Okay.
Nor Chrysotoxum.
No, I'm so sorry, Sandy. I did see.
Chrysotoxum. I have an anosmum, but she's a poorly one. She's only just coming into recovery, but mainly they do need a chill or let's say, let me qualify that. They need a cool down, not a chill, but they can go down as low as 5 degrees is what I can guarantee and confirm, because my poly one can tolerate those temperatures. They really shouldn't be at all difficult to grow. Blooming is different if the temperature remain the same. You know, if you have even temperatures, they do need, just like with a phalaenopsis, to get it to spike, to get those hormones moving and rebelling, fighting for survival. They do need to have a bit of a cool down. The chrysotoxin does need a winter rest, according to my understanding, as well as a cool down. Both of them go hand in hand. And even though the anosmum should lose their leaves, chrysotoxin doesn't lose its leaves. They need high light, just like a Kingianum, pretty much, in order for them to actually spike. That is my understanding. I don't have a chrysotoxin, but that is my understanding. All these Australian hard cane dendrobiums need a chill, not a dry winter rest. They do need a little bit of water as a, you know, if we want to go with a broad kind of rule for these Aussies, then they, you know, give them a little bit of a drink every once in a while, but make sure that they get enough cold temperatures for, I always say, 6 to 8 weeks. And then don't bring them in straight away to the warm, nice, cozy indoors, but make sure that they get a sort of a gradual acclimating, as if you were to, you know, as if spring were to wake up in the outdoors. Try to somehow balance that out. And then there was a third comment, densiflorum. I have no idea. I would have to Google densiflorum, Sandy. I do not know densiflorum. Maybe Michael McCarthy knows more about densiflorum. Kind of asking here for help from the chat. Michael runs the AC only because the summer humidity will cause, yes. Yes, Michael, it would cause mold in the house for sure.
I have 65. I have 65% humidity according to most of my monitors dotted all around the house, and it's running at 5% humidity. Temperature is 26 degrees. So happy days in here. It feels like Queensland. But yes, it can dry out a little bit.
It sounds like so perfection to me. Go ahead, sorry, Judy.
In my growing space where I keep my dendrobiums, I keep them on the floor, close to a door. So they get because I do run my air conditioning quite a bit in summertime, and the heat in wintertime, but mine sit on the floor, so I don't really know how to explain it other than the floor tends to be more similar in temperature to what it is outside, because my feet are always cold. But where these ones sit, I don't have nearly the humidity at all that Sharon does. So these ones in the summertime get humidities 25%, and they seem to be okay.
Oh, wow.
But if I don't run a humidifier in my, when I first started monitoring my humidity levels in the house, my humidity was 12.
Yikes. I mean, I'm used to around about 30, 25, like you just mentioned, Julie, but 12.
Say again?
I said, how did
I didn't hear you,
your
Sharon.
skin fall off of moisturizers? I reckon at 12%, my skin would just flake off and disappear. That's what I imagine.
I actually had. Anyway. Yeah, I had to get used to that because I went from, Illinois where normal humidity is, 70, 75% all year long to here. And my hair is the one that took the worst hit from that one. My hair used to be down to my knees, and now it's just down to my waist. And that was learning how to take care of it in this dry climate. I didn't notice so much too badly on my skin. But I can say that since I've started running humidifiers with my orchids in the house, I have noticed that my skin and my hair, and I sleep better. So
Interesting.
it's not only made an improvement in my orchids' lives, it's made an improvement in my life.
Fantastic. So Danielle was asking earlier on, and I really appreciate that she reminded me because that question slipped up to the top there. Do you have any specific recipes for pests? Specifically, let's say for your area, is there something that works better for you? Do you have to buy it in as a synthetic, or do you do something?
Garlic alcohol.
It works for you too, huh?
Yep.
Fan-
And I also will put a little bit of paraffin wax in it and do it as a spray in spring and then in fall. And then if I need to do a spot treatment, I'll paintbrush it like you do, but garlic alcohol.
Okay. Paraffin wax, because help me out. Why?
Because if you put the paraffin, then it creates a small film, if you will, that washes off easily. And it keeps the garlic oils on a bit better when the alcohol dries up, evaporates.
So there's people who will use vegetable oil, like horticultural oil made of vegetable oils. So your canola, sunflower, that sort of thing. They'll mix it with water, but because it doesn't emulsify, they'll put in a couple of drops of dish soap, like dishwashing soap. So that's a very common thing to use. However, I have found that is the oil that gets left on the leaves of the plants causes, like if it's windy, it will get muck actually stored on it. It's very difficult to wipe off, and they're good horticultural oils, but they do leave a very oily substance on the thing. Paraffin oil does not do that. So paraffin oil is a much lighter oil. So a lot of us will use paraffin oil in place of your vegetable oils and things like that.
That's
So
interesting because that's in baby oil as well, isn't it? Paraffin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's petroleum based. So it is, but it's a very good oil, and it's a lot lighter, especially for orchids that, well, anything that has, all plants have stromata, some on the top of their leaves, some on the bottom of their leaves, but they need to be able to breathe. And putting all of that vegetable oil, unfortunately, I found when I used to play with it that it just left way too much oil on the leaves itself. I don't tend to use oils much these days. I tend to use, and I order in 20 kilo means it comes on a van and has to be lifted by other people into my house, and that is 70% isopropyl alcohol. And my problem is spider mites. My big problem is spider mites and mealybugs, mainly spider mites. But I've got spider mites all through my grow room right now. It's driving me crazy.
Despite the humidity. Astounding.
Oh, they don't care. I've got propagation bins that are like 9 humidity. They don't care. They're all over it. So I was washing prior to coming onto the stream. I was washing down some of my velvet leaf philodendrons and anthuriums because again they're so for me it's 70% isopropyl alcohol. I mix it 50-50 with water.
Interesting.
Now, at Wyland has asked for ants query Vaseline around the pots. I do struggle with ants because they come in during the hottest part of the year looking for water. Let me be specific about that. In the middle of summer,
cat food.
Okay, no, they leave the cat food alone. They go for water. So I do put Vaseline around my pots, but I put it, let me get this in view, down here on the outside, not up here, so that if I accidentally I don't get it into the pot. I just will put it, like I said, right along just underneath, and then they can't crawl up and over it. If that helps.
I have a horror story with an ant nest that found its way into my yucca plant that's sort of sitting here behind here, guy up there. So that one is in a very, very large pot and sits there in camera. And he sits there all the time, and it's, of course, right next to the window, and I wasn't watering him enough, so the ants actually got into it and built a nest. And then when I watered it, like,
Oh, and in the house at that.
In the house, and I didn't realize that this had happened. And all of a sudden, I did start noticing a little more ants than usual in that area. But, you know, again, summer season, they tend to be around a lot more. And because it was getting warmer, I watered it a little bit more often. And then all of a sudden, I had ants on the march all throughout my living room. They're crazy. Aside from that, I really have had no problems. I have had them get into pots outside, but they tend to go through the holes at the bottom. So I don't tend to keep too much in cover pots out there. So I just make sure that everything gets a little bit more of a water these days, and probably what it did when they like to crawl in and out. Anything that is susceptible and is a small pot tends to come inside in the winter anyway. So I tend to manage it with hoses and a little bit of ant sand if I absolutely need to. But I swear I'm living on Swiss cheese.
Well, the thing is that I was, you know, I never had issues with my ants because they controlled my happy sap, which is it's quite all right until they brought their little gaggle of aphids along with them and started to do a little bit of a nursery interaction. I put you here, you feed me, and you are happy with whatever is going on. That happened in 2021, and this year, especially for my phaeus, I did put a perimeter of Vaseline around the pot, and I had some gorgeous blooms without aphids or any of their compadres. And what I've noticed as well, my Garin Weaver, I wasn't being diligent about. My Garin Weaver, Phragmopedium, always lives outside. It's so easy just to pour water through him. I never bothered. And in 2021, when I went to clean up the root ball, the first thing that came out, because I had to soak the pot being semi-hydro, I closed off the holes, poured water in, and I was thinking, well, that's a lot of ants that are coming out of the hedge, until I looked a little closer to see what trajectory they were going in, and they were coming out of the pot and going into the hedge.
You made a video of that, I'm sure of it. I'm sure I've seen that on the video.
Yes, I know. There was serious trigger alert, guys. If you don't, I was very shocked. Hasn't happened since. Gets a jug of water every day just to avoid it.
I would not have expected it to get involved with a self-watering setup. That was a surprise. It shows how tenacious they are.
Well, also how little I watered my Garin Weaver in the south, deep south there. Because if they can find something nice, warm, and a little bit damp, they'll go for it, Yeah. You keep that was my bad, making sure that pot wasn't wet enough constantly, which is exactly what a Garin Weaver needs, especially when it gets hot. They don't like to have warm roots. But yeah, no, the Vaseline worked fine for me. It was just a pain to get off. And back to your oil thing, Sharon, I like the idea of the paraffin oil. I didn't like that I had all the dust on the Vaseline around the pot. It just collected, and it started to look really unsightly. That was just nasty.
Yeah,
I don't
it's
know.
a heavy product.
Yeah, but paraffin oil, where do you buy it? Where did you buy it? Sorry.
I got mine at the pharmacy.
Okay. Okay.
Pharmacy.
The other thing, I don't know if people get it overseas very easily, but I highly recommend a couple of drops of tea tree oil in a 1 litre or 1 gallon US gallon jug of water. So just a couple of drops, maybe 3 or 4, and use that if you've got an infestation of whitefly.
Okay, that's great for the organic growers.
Can you use that outside as well?
Yep.
Okay, because
I have
my rose this year.
No, it's an antifungal as well. So tea tree oil has been used as antifungal, antibacterial, as known for well researched medicinal properties. But it has a lovely smell.
I've got tea tree oil here in the cupboard.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Cool.
Human use.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So I highly recommend that one. It'll last about 12 to 14 days before you'll have to do it again. But yeah, it's fantastic. It just repels whitefly like nothing else.
Okay.
That's a top tip. I'm gonna timestamp. I'm gonna find this conversation and timestamp it for the description, because that's a top tip. I mean, whitefly normally doesn't bother the plant or the orchid as such. It's just a nuisance that, like a fungus gnat, it's like, oh yuck, you know. But when in Julie's case, it just destroys your rose bush. That's when you're kind of like, I love the smell of tea tree oil.
Yeah.
I do love the smell as well.
But Sandy has a question, or have they used essential oil mixture? Now, if I'm interpreting that correctly, Sandy, I think the question is, can you use a tea tree essential oil? What you're looking for is Melaleuca oil.
Would you type that in the chat?
Yeah, I will type it into the chat. But it's from Melaleuca tree. It's quite specific. So, oh no, that's the wrong chat. Where's that? How can I actually put a chat message in? Because I'm in the, I'm in the restream.
Okay.
MEL.
Yes.
Melaleuca.
MELA. Like that?
Yeah, LE.
There you go. MELALUCA. Nina, it looks like you've typed
That's
it right.
The one.
Okay.
Yep, that's the one. Melaleuca.
that is my linguistic skills shining through.
You can get it at 100%. As I said, if you've got the 100% solution, only a few drops. If you've got the 30% solution, which you sell as well, that's at least here, 5 ml for a gallon of water or a litre. So you don't need a lot. You don't need a lot. You'll be smelling it for weeks if you do.
Yeah, but it's not unpleasant.
Yeah. It's not unpleasant. It's, as I said, and it's great. A lot of plant people will recommend it from an antifungal or antibacterial point of view.
It's great. I mean, there's so many things like we can use, and we were talking about that in another stream the other day about the myths and stuff. I wouldn't necessarily consider like home remedies great for fertilizing, but when it comes to antifungal, I mean, we use cinnamon, and then gentian's violet as well. Recently discovered as the same thing as dragon's blood, which I was using instead of iodine, which was very expensive in Kenya. We had dragon's blood, which is ironically very expensive here, and iodine is cheaper. But, all our scratches, bruises, antibacterials will work on the orchids as well. But just don't put anything into the fertilizer.
I've never seen dragon's blood here in Australia. The other thing I've never seen is mosquito bits. Apparently you can order them online, but they're about $80, and I'm not paying $80.
No, that's crazy.
Things like mosquito bits.
Yeah. No, the mosquito bits for the fungus gnats should apparently work a treat, but we have our, you have your things that work, and this thing with the whitefly, that is super interesting. Very much appreciate a little nugget of intel. I've never found
anything else that actually works on the whitefly that I have. That it loves to infest my my parsley patch during the summer, during the spring and the summer, and it is everywhere. You just brush past it and they all just fly up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found that got a hot little tip from the Orchid Society on that one, and I gave it a try, and it has worked a dream. And for us, at least in Australia, that's the stuff we have in the bathroom, in our medicine cabinet. So I said, Michael, it says Melaleuca is a scourge in Florida. I didn't know that actually. So
I didn't either. Meanwhile, I didn't even know that Melaleuca was a specific tree, but like with dragon's blood, there is a specific tree and a specific species.
You mean it's not made of dragon?
No, it's not popular because of House of Dragons. No, it's not. It looks like it though. It is very, it looks ominous when you take it out. It does. But yeah, anyway, Julie's off to make herself another
Nina,
coffee. My goodness.
why do you use the garlic in your recipe? I did wonder that.
Because of
Because I just
the
use straight 50-50.
yeah. Well, the thing is that the garlic has repelling properties of whatever is left behind. So once the alcohol evaporates and deals with the pests, the essential oils and whatever of those components of the garlic remains on the structures, and that repels the insects. So it's not just for treatment, it's also repelling. And from what I've noticed with my scale, whatever kind I've got, if you're doing it preventative and you don't have any issues, then it's at least every 2 months. I would not go beyond that to reapply to keep a plant clean, but go beyond that, and it's not a systemic, of course. It's a one-off. It's not a one-off and you're done, as I found out with my Tolumnias, because wow, time did fly this summer, I tell you. But yeah, no, the garlic is there as the repellent effect. The alcohol is there as, cleaning any possible pests. For me, for example, I can't see everything with the naked eye, even with my glasses on. Sometimes I have to take a picture and then see if there's something hiding there. Like with my Hawaiian lava burst, the whole structures were scale free because she was a scale problem for like 2 years. So everything was scale free because she never bloomed. She's a rescue. And only recently did she push a spike. That structure, of course, did not have garlic alcohol on it. And when I then took the image and put it on my big screen, I saw scale on the spike, which I didn't see with my naked eye. And I check that orchid every day, because if she gets another scale infestation, it'll weaken her again. And I don't want that. So sometimes it really irritates me. I think I've got my blooms all nice and clean. I put them on the big screen. I'm like, are you kidding me? And then I really go out. I go out with my phone and I zoom in on the image, and then I look at the orchid and I look where that thing is, and then I can find it and deal with it. It's really primitive here on the patio, I tell you. Yeah, awkward.
I'm finding I'm doing that, Nina, on some of the not necessarily the pests, but when you're at the grocery store and you're looking at what's written on the boxes of the whatever you're buying to see what's in it. Sometimes I'm finding I'm having to take a picture of it and zoom in to read the fine print.
I know.
Welcome to aging.
Yeah, I know. And the thing is, I have reading glasses on there specifically for reading, and I find I'm wearing them now all the time. It's just a headache wearing my glasses, I just put them on, which is not good. You should exercise your eyes, keep the glasses off, don't wear them if you don't have to, yada, yada. Like when I'm driving, I don't need my glasses. But the moment, I'm dealing with anything, patio, orchids, editing, what's the point? I'm doing that 12 hours a day, and the glasses might as well stay on. To be honest, it's easier this way. But let me just make sure I've got something right. So I spelled the Melaleuca without the E. Michael McCarthy spelled it with the Leuca. So I suppose that is the correct version. If anybody's going to look up that name, it's Melaleuca with Leuca as opposed to my guesstimate. Right. Ladies, is there anything else you want to share with us? I mean, just one moment, because I have to clear my throat.
Yes, that oil spelling is correct.
Michael's.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
All right, everybody, heads up. Melaleuca with an Euca at the end. I thought I cleared my throat.
Do I have anything else to share? Yeah, don't come here. It's a really long way. No, I'm not joking.
Actually, to be honest with you, Australia was on my bucket list.
Okay.
Until you met up.
I have to put that in past tense, but yeah, go ahead.
I'll say that for me to transport home back to, I'll just say I'm from Champaign-Urbana, Illinois. That's where I moved here from. I'm going to say it's a 48-hour transit. Assuming you have a decent layover, you can do it shorter. But at one point in time, because they've just created a new route from Perth to, I think, the UK, which is now the longest flight in the world. It used to be Dallas. I think it was Dallas to Sydney that was the longest flight in the world. So yeah, if you're going to come to Australia, particularly to Western Australia, be prepared to spend at minimum 2 days transporting one way.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Back
then
in the day,
I'd say the
back
same.
in the day, I said I'm not going to Australia unless I have 4 weeks.
Yeah. Don't waste your time, because if you just have 1 week, it's going to take you 4 days to get here and back. And then the 3 days that you're here, you're going to be so jet lagged, you won't be able to do anything.
Right. And of course, back in the day, I was busy single working mom, and I thought, where am I going to get 4 weeks from? Plus 2 children.
Once you come to Australia, you get 4 weeks holiday every year.
That's right.
That's true.
That's right. Well, here in Spain, supposedly as well. However, we have to now, it's not a complete month. We have to split it. Back when I was actively working, and I did get a full month off, but now they like to split it 2 weeks to 2 weeks. And we have Jose Joseph in the house. It is so good to see you. This is from Kerala, India. Oh my goodness. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. How are you? We are in Australia for the day. As always, say the transformation of monologue into dialogue is awesome. Oh, this is fantastic. It is so good to see you. Fantastic. I hope that your Sunday morning is awesome already, that you're enjoying maybe a walk around in your garden, checking your orchids. Oh, Jose, it warms my heart to see you, because I've been saying for the longest time that Australia and India, they get the short end of the stick because of all the different time zones. So appreciated to see you. Thank you very, very much. Hope that you're doing well, Jose.
But yes, I absolutely agree. I've flown, I spent a lot of time in America, as I lived there for a year. But I spent time going back and forth. My ex-husband was American, so I spent a long time going from Melbourne to Sydney, Sydney to LA to Baltimore, and then Baltimore down to South Carolina, and then back again. So do be prepared for flights not to go as planned.
Yeah.
Layover.
Yep. Long layovers. Yep.
And it's going to take longer than what it says on the ticket. It's
Yeah. We lost Sharon.
When I flew here, we flew from Chicago. For whatever reason, they sent us to LAX, and then LAX to Dallas, and then Dallas to New Zealand, New Zealand to Sydney, Sydney to Perth.
My word.
Yeah. Now, before COVID hit, we were planning on doing an around the world, just because we thought we could do it easily by visiting my husband's family and some friends. So we've got family and friends in the Kerala area where Jose is from. And we thought that we'd just sort of bounce around and around and around and go around the globe, because it would be quicker to go all the way around the globe than just to fly to the States.
Might as well, no?
And then COVID hit, so I can't say that I've circumnavigated the globe yet, and I'm kind of disappointed.
I told my fiance once, I said, you know what? I'm going to make you an offer. We're going to get married in Fiji. We're going to fly to LA, and then you still have time to change your mind. I just thought he looked at me until he figured out what I was saying. Meanwhile, that didn't happen, but yeah. I said,
because tomorrow starts in Guam.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I thought, marry and have the honeymoon right then and there, fly on the next flight straight out to Los Angeles, and then you can say, do you still want to or not? You've got 24 hours or 23, whatever. But anyway. Yeah, Sandy, summer was, and here we are now talking about the climate of Australia, early spring, and they should be now hitting their beautiful hot temperatures, and they're still not getting the heat. It's sort of a reminder of mine. I don't want to be rude. I did, Sharon froze out. Maybe she got a call or something. But if we have nothing more for this moment, I saw that, Sharon. I saw that. I left in the back chat. I left a little chat. I don't know if you saw that on time, but we can take notes, ladies, because Sharon had the idea to do this more on the regular. We can maybe take notes and plan another one of these sessions. It was a little bit ad hoc. Julie-san was so happy to join us today. It was awesome to get Sharon to again come on board. This was like let's say a little bit of a test drive of what Sharon had as an idea in an email to me, that maybe we do this more on the regular. And if any of the two of you over there have other orchid friends that you know about and would like to even join in on the conversation and expand it, I can have up to 6 guests, well, 5 guests including me. I'll hop off and leave you the floor if we get 6 of you on board. Just saying, that maybe we can take some notes, whoever wants to talk about something, and then we can come together. And another Saturday night, it doesn't have to be next week, but another Saturday night we'll do this again and maybe do a little bit more Google Earthing, because I thought that was awesome to visit at least the 2 little places that we had a look at today. And you guys seeing your face light up, this is home for you and this is all new for us. I think I want to say thank you, Julie, so very, very much. You have no idea what it means to me that you took your early morning Sunday to be here with us. That is, Sunday morning for me is religious. In the sense that, don't mess with me on a Sunday morning, because it's the one day where the gardeners are not playing with their toys, and I actually feel I get an extra hour. So,
well, Nina, as I can say, I have an east-facing bedroom window. The sun comes up 5:30 a.m. I'm generally lying there half awake, going, "Damn you, sun." So if you'd like to do it again, I'm up for it. I was just myself personally honored that you asked me to join in on this, and that you respect my growing as a relatively new grower. I just felt honored, so I thank you as well.
We never got to touch really into detail with your seedlings. Maybe we can do that, in 2 or 3 weeks, whenever the schedule fits, and we can target the seedling care with
the seedlings. Some of them are coming up on their 1-year-old birthday out of Flask.
We have to have a birthday party for your seedlings. Maybe we can do that on a stream where we can celebrate their 12 months with you and see.
That'd be cool.
Wouldn't it be fun? Little seedling birthday party. I would just be sitting here going, I'll have cake. I'm in it for the cake. All right. Well, ladies, if you'll just stay on with me for another 5 minutes while I close the live off, please don't shut down just yet. But I want to say don't go, please. But I want to say thank you to everybody so much for coming here tonight, this afternoon, this morning, whatever it is. And it was so nice to see Kerala in here. So nice. You have no idea what that means to me. Thank you so much, Jose. Thank you to my moderators. I keep forgetting to say thank you to Robert as well as Michael McCarthy, who probably has been eating away at his cookies. Yeah, nice. And everybody else. If I didn't get to any of your questions, then when the video has processed, I will double check again the comments tomorrow, but let me know then in the comments and I'll make sure to address it. Or Sharon can address them, or Julie, you can direct your questions at either of the two, okay? Now, I shared Julie's link in the chat throughout the stream because she has a YouTube channel. Sharon is working on her YouTube channel. So please don't think I singled her out. She's working on it, and her company is Rare Roots of Joy, so we'll be keeping an eye out on that when she's ready to launch. And boy, oh boy, are we going to have some fun with that, for sure. Anyway.
So there'll be the two channels. So there'll be the two channels that I've decided to separate be one for the business. So there'll be one called Rare Roots of Joy, and there's another one called Joyous Orchids. So
yeah,
look forward to seeing those.
Oh wow,
orchid.
That is awesome! I love that name. That's awesome.
That will be, I'll keep them separated because I really do want to keep the business as the rare tropical house plants and tropical house.
Breaking news! You heard it here first. I'm so proud. That is awesome. I can't wait to get that underway as well. I mean, I always slip in your company name, hoping that we're going to do some, little bit of memories, this, that, and the other, so that the mind starts to associate you with that. But no, awesome. I hope I didn't jump the gun, but, thank you, everybody. Have yourself a great rest of the evening. You two just hold on a second, please. And as always, on one condition, though, that you please stay safe. Take care. Bye.